For sure. One of our 20, I'm not trying to make it out that I'm massively self-aware here. It's only from trying and failing that this has come to light, as opposed to kind of any light bulb moments. But one of our goals over at salesman.org in 2021 is, I think it's from the book Good to Great. I think it's Jim Collins. He talks about this 20-mile march of great companies. They don't sprint. They start a project and they do 20 miles and then they go home for the day. They do 20 miles, they go home for the day. And they do this over 10 years and then they become great. There's very few companies that sprint for 50 miles a day and then 5 miles a day, then 100 miles a day, then 7 miles a day, and really get anywhere over the long term. Those sprints tend to burn out both corporate, culturally in larger organizations, and massive staff turnover and other things as well. So as I said, I'm not trying to make out that massively self-aware, but I know it's an issue that I've had with prospecting in the past, this consistency and this mentality of 20-mile march, 20-mile march, 20-mile march. If you're fresh and you've got loads of energy, I still end at the end of the 20 miles. So I'm fresh in the morning because that's something that I'm focusing on. Okay, so we're running out of time here, Richard. I want to really get into this. You've alluded to some of this, perhaps with video calling or video messaging. How can we break through the noise in this 2021? Everyone's working from home. There's shenanigans going on in the that's less so in the UK, but in the US and everywhere else. There's all kinds of things politically. COVID's here. There's new strains. There's all kinds of nonsense going on. How do we break through all of this? Not just sales noise, but even just the noise of the media as well.
Yeah, it's a great question. I've talked about personalized and relevant, two words I've used in this podcast so far, and sadly, Will, as someone who gets prospected by salespeople, I still don't get very much myself, and I feel like even though this message has been hammered home so much by so many people for so much length of time, I still am, over the course of a year, getting a handful of approaches from salespeople, which I would describe as personalized and relevant. And it's tough because the more that you don't get that, the more difficult it is to grab the attention of someone like myself, because you start to assume the stuff that's coming in your inbox next is just not going to be either of those things. And it does punish in some respects the good salespeople out there.
So what do we do? What do, to get practical, what do we need to do to get your attention? Or you can share examples or kind of talk about it more loosely and anecdotally if you like. But who has got your attention recently, and what did they do?
One of the people who got my attention recently was someone who actually called me up. Like, it sounds crazy, but they call me on my mobile and let people. I say this a lot. This kind of myth that people are being inundated with cold calls every day. It's just a myth. Like I've received something. I could probably count on one hand the amount of like cold calls I received in the entirety of last year. And this one person called and basically at the time it was actually they get a bad name, but it was someone, it was a recruiter. It was somebody who was like, noticed online that I was that the team was growing, and therefore it was a relevant contact.
Sure.
They didn't just kind of sound like every other recruiter. When the call started, they actually just got me into a conversation and referenced something about the company and some of the changes that they've just, simply stuff that was readily available on, if you spent literally 5 minutes on LinkedIn, you could find it out. So first of all, it was just like using the phone, which is just a method of contact that seemingly people just don't make use of. And here's the evidence. I'm saying I got called 5 times last year. Compare that to the amount of emails or LinkedIn messages I got. There's just it's a different planet. And secondly, just invest that literally tiny bit of time doing some sort of research. What can you find about me? What have I posted about on LinkedIn? What's happening with my company right now? Who are the latest people who've joined the sales team at Refract? There's tons of content out there. I'm on podcasts, webinars, reference something that I'm talking about. There's kind of no excuse for people not to make that contact personalized and relevant. But also just make sure that you're using every tool available to you. Like, I'm a big a big proponent right now of LinkedIn voice notes. I've received again a handful of these over the last year. Every single one I've listened to.
Yeah, I feel guilty if I don't listen to them, and that might change as if they're used more and more often. But I don't feel guilty ignoring a text message, whether it's an email or a LinkedIn message. For whatever reason, whether societal pressure is being laid on top of me, I do feel guilty not watching and replying to a video message and not watching or listening and replying to a voice message. Is your experience similar?
It's exactly the same. I think it's intrigue. It's new. It's stuff that you're not used to. So so much of prospecting is building intrigue. It's building curiosity. It's getting someone to want to read more or to find out more. But right now, again, I'll say, like, you made a good point. Maybe when these things get overused, then that might change. We're a long, long way away from those things being overused. Like, again, the volume of video messages and voice messages I got last year was tiny compared to emails and LinkedIn actual text-based messages. So make hay while the sun shines. Embrace these methods of contact that your competitors aren't using or people in your field aren't using, because there will be another method that will come along. Once those things get overused, that it will happen. So just make use of it, and don't forget the phone, which is still is underutilized in my opinion.